When Nathan Morris left me again and got back together with Christine Kelly, I finally felt it was all boring. When he left, he said, "Kimberly, go find a boyfriend. I won't look for you anymore." I smiled and nodded. Okay. He thought that as long as he looked back, I would always be there waiting for him. But later, he and Christine broke up again and came to me. But she happened to see my boyfriend and I kissing passionately downstairs. As the night deepened, Nathan saw that the girl who used to only speak softly to him was now coaxing another man in a gentle voice. "Jordan Kelly, please stop being jealous, I already dislike him." 01. As I was about to make a wish, Nathan lost his focus for the third time. He absent-mindedly took out his cell phone, unlocked it, and locked it again several times. Until finally, the screen suddenly lit up and a message came in. His slightly frowned brows instantly relaxed. While everyone was singing happy birthday to me, Nathan just left the room. The singing was awkwardly interrupted. The girl next to me touched me worriedly. "Kimberly, are you okay?" I smiled bitterly. What could happen? After so many years, such scenes have become nothing new. The people in the box have begun to whisper. I just saw on WeChat moments that Christine returned to China 2 days ago. Nathan picked me up at the airport, right? Of course, everyone knows how much Nathan loves her. Keep your voice down so Kimberly doesn't hear. What's wrong with hearing that? If you want to be a spare tire, you have to be prepared to be a spare tire. What does she have to do with the main person coming back? As the voices gradually became louder, the door of the box opened from the outside. Nathan came back, but with Christine by his side. Both were wearing black cashmere coats. Nathan is tall and handsome, while Christine is slim, slender, beautiful, and generous. They are truly a perfect match. Everyone gathered around, calling out Brother Nathan and Sister Christine, and it was extremely lively. I stood aside and tactfully did not step forward, until Nathan called my name. "Kimberly." The room suddenly became quiet. They looked at me, now nominally Nathan's girlfriend. Christine also looked at me, then unhappily shook off Nathan's hand. 02. Nathan felt helpless and shook his head lovingly. I don't know what he whispered to her until Christine smiled. Then Nathan came up to me. "Kimberly, I need to tell you something." I raised my eyes to look at him. After a while, he asked gently, "Can't you wait until I finish cutting the cake?" Nathan avoided my gaze. "Kimberly." "Okay." I put down my knife and fork and waited for him to speak. "You know, I've always had Christine in my heart," he said, looking at me with a slightly frowned brow. "Besides, you're really not my type. It's been pretty boring these days together. Are you breaking up?" Nathan nodded without hesitation. "Kimberly, go find a boyfriend. I won't look for you again." This isn't the first time he said something like this to me. But when he said this in the past, I always shook my head stubbornly. But this time I smiled and nodded. "Okay." Nathan frowned slightly, as if he wanted to say something. But Christine was already impatient. "Nathan, are you done yet? Why is it taking so long to break up?" He didn't say anything else, turned around, hugged Christine and left. I clenched my hands tightly, my fingertips digging deep into the flesh. But I don't seem to feel any pain. Finally, I couldn't help but raise my eyes and watch his back as he left. Every step was crisp and decisive. I counted 11 steps it took him to walk out of the room. When I completed these 11 steps, I seemed to have really let go completely. 03. As soon as Nathan left, everyone in the room dispersed. I looked at the cake in front of me and cut a piece and put it on the plate. Opened another bottle of wine. But in the end, I didn't touch the cake, but I finished the wine. I put on my coat and walked out of the room. I heard someone setting off fireworks not far away. I stopped and watched for a while. When the sky is lit up by fireworks, I also saw Christine nestled in Nathan's arms. She is stunningly beautiful and has a brilliant smile. Nathan hugged her tightly and lowered his head to kiss her between the eyebrows. Today is my birthday. But these fireworks in the sky are not blooming for me. I smiled to myself, turned around and stumbled forward. There were drunk men along the way who tried to stop me. "Sister, do you want to play with me?" I pushed it several times but failed to open it, and I couldn't help feeling scared and anxious. I don't know anyone here except Nathan. But should I ask Nathan for help? In a flash, Nathan had already embraced Christine and left. The man in front of me held my wrist tightly, trying to pull me into his arms. I struggled desperately, but I was too drunk to have any strength left. I saw that man's hand was about to fall on my waist. In the dark night, I saw a familiar figure. Jordan was wearing a dark gray knee-length coat, holding a cigarette between his fingers, and seemed to be talking on the phone. The tiny fireworks flickered between his slender fingers. Mottled light and shadow fell on his face, which looked like it was chiseled by a knife. It is as beautiful as a jade mountain about to collapse. I didn't care about anything else and shouted for help. Dr. Kelly, 04. When Jordan's eyes came over, those cold eyes were like cold stars in the dark night, without temperature or fluctuation. But he hesitated for a moment, then hung up the phone and put out his cigarette. Walked towards me. The two drunken men seemed to see that he was either rich or noble. Instead, he tactfully let go and walked away. But as soon as they let go, my legs became too weak to stand. Jordan reached out and held me steady. Stand still. I whispered a thank you and tried to keep myself on my feet. But he was still shaky and almost fell down several times. Jordan frowned slightly and could only hold me again. Where's Nathan? He's not with you. We broke up. He seemed to laugh, but maybe I heard it wrong. Don't you guys break up every other day? I lowered my eyes and stared at my toes. The sour and bitter feeling spread from the heart all the way to the throat. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse. We are really separated and we will never get back together. Jordan seemed to have no interest in listening to me. He raised his wrist to check his watch and asked coldly, Can you go back by yourself? My stomach hurts. You have just recovered from your stomach ulcer. I suggest you drink less alcohol. But today is my birthday. I raised my slightly red eyes and looked at him. Dr. Kelly, I was in a bad mood, so I drank. Jordan said nothing. But it was obvious that the way he looked at me seemed to have softened a little. I'll take you back first. I don't want to go back. Jordan looked at me with a dark look in his eyes. So what do you want to do? Dr. Kelly, you say. It's my birthday today and I don't want to be alone. Jordan was silent for a few seconds before he spoke. Get in the car with me first. I'm not going home. Jordan held the steering wheel with one hand and glanced at me. I know. 05. To be exact, we kissed in the underground garage. He originally leaned over to unbuckle my seatbelt. When he turned sideways, his tall nose accidentally rubbed against the top of my head. Dr. Kelly. I was drunk and my reaction was slow. I looked up at him in a daze and forgot to avoid him. Jordan looked at me but didn't look away. His eyes gradually became hot, making my mouth dry. I can't remember who kissed who first. When I came to my senses, Jordan had already grabbed the back of my head and deepened the kiss. I've been on and off with Nathan a few times and we've been dating for almost a year in total. We held hands and he kissed me, but maybe it was because I still didn't like him. Kiss is just a light touch. But Jordan kissed her deeply. Jordan stopped only when it was so deep that I almost ran out of oxygen. The light in the car was dim. He lowered his head and his forehead touched mine. Kimberly, close your eyes when you kiss. Why? Jordan kissed her again. Because I can't bear to go home when you look at me like that. This time the kiss was long and comfortable. I couldn't help but hum softly, raised my hand, and inserted my fingers into his thick black hair. Jordan, don't worry, we have all night. I don't want to be a pathetic and ridiculous spare tire anymore. I don't want to be summoned and dismissed at will. I know it's very difficult to completely let go of someone you truly loved. So I don't want to leave myself any more room for retreat. I don't want to look back again. After tonight, there will never be a possibility for Nathan and I. Maybe it's because I've been too depressed over the years. So, the rare chance I got drunk and indulged myself was to indulge myself to the fullest. 06. Jordan took me back to the bedroom and stood by the bed unbuttoning his shirt. He suddenly stopped and leaned over to look at me. Kimberly Foster, if you regret it now. I put my hands around his neck and said, Dr. Kelly, do you doctors also want to desert the battlefield? Jordan didn't say anything else, but there was a fire burning in his obsidian eyes. With her wrists pinned above her head, he kissed her deeply and forcefully. Most surgeons have a pair of dexterous and strong hands, and Jordan is definitely one of the best. As I floated into the clouds, even ridiculous thoughts popped into my mind. With a pair of hands like his, he could catch even the most difficult fish with his bare hands. Otherwise, why can he catch my little fish so accurately now? Kimberly. The hot kiss fell again. Jordan bit my earlobe and said in a hoarse voice, "Call my name, Kimberly." I groaned in pain. Jordan, I feel uncomfortable." The kiss, as dense as raindrops, fell on my lips again. "Be good, I'll give it all to you." 07. Late at night, it started raining outside the terrace. Those delicate flowers were soaked by the early winter rain. But indoors there is a different kind of refreshing spring. But after the spring, some people's mood is unusually complicated. Jordan had a craving for a cigarette, so he took one but didn't light it. He had never thought of it. Kimberly and Nathan have been together on and off for 3 years. Never crossed that line. 08. When I woke up the next day, it was already bright. Jordan is off today and has already prepared breakfast. I came out after washing up and sat down in the restaurant. As he handed me the hot milk, I asked tentatively, "Dr. Kelly, can I take a picture?" 10 minutes ago, someone sent me a screenshot. Last night, Nathan posted a message on WeChat Moments. "After seeing so many things, I still remember you." The accompanying picture was a photo of him and Christine holding hands under a sky full of fireworks. I guess someone asked me the following. Nathan replied, "Don't mention her anymore. Christine will be upset." "What are you shooting?" Jordan cut a piece of bread and put it on the plate in front of me. The hand that usually holds a scalpel now holds a knife and fork. But each root is like a jade tube, slender and powerful. I suddenly thought of last night, when it was these slender fingers that were causing trouble. Dr. Kelly, who appears to be so gentle, abstinent and unattainable on the outside. How can it be so crazy in bed? What's more, when our love was at its strongest, he whispered those words in my ear. Now I dare not think about it. I turned my face away and coughed softly. "I wanted to pat your hand." Jordan didn't respond. But after putting the bread down, he did not take his hand away. I slowly took out my phone, took a picture and asked, "Can I post it on WeChat Moments?" Jordan peeled the egg slowly. "I'm single." He looked at me and handed me the peeled egg. "As you like." 09. I posted a message on WeChat Moments. "Bread cut by beautiful hands seems to be more delicious." The accompanying picture is Jordan's pair of beautiful hands that are so infuriating. After just a few seconds, it was like cold water splashing out of a frying pan. My WeChat immediately exploded. In the WeChat group of Nathan's friends, someone took a screenshot of my moments immediately. Is this true? Is this a photoshopped picture? You know what, this hand is really pretty. I never knew Kimberly was so good at this. She must have found this photo on the internet on purpose to provoke Nathan. Nathan. Childish. Nathan, what do you think? What if it's true? Kimberly isn't ugly, she's fair and tender and very lovable. Nathan. She doesn't dare. It's hard to say. Even clay figures have some temper. Sean seemed to have said the same thing at the beginning. Jeremy Alexander. Exactly. Sean Flores. Nathan, if Kimberly were to really date you, would you mind? Nathan. I told her she wouldn't dare. That's right. If she really dares to talk to others, then she won't even be able to be a backup. Nathan. Tell her not to play such tricks. She is not Christine. I will not fall for her tricks. After replying the message, Nathan threw down his phone and lit a cigarette. Isn't it stupid to use such a trick, Kimberly? 10. There are many messages on WeChat that ask me explicitly or implicitly what that post on Moments means. I took a look and didn't reply. In the afternoon, Jordan had to go to the hospital for an emergency surgery. You rest at home and wait for me to come back to eat together in the evening. He changed his clothes, took his car keys and was about to go out. But I quickly followed him out. I want to go back to the store. Jordan changed his shoes and glanced at me calmly. What's the matter? I pursed my lips and didn't dare to look at him. Nathan's stuff is still there. I packed it out and asked his assistant to take it away. Jordan said calmly, "Well, I'll take you there." Jordan. He and I have nothing. Before I finished speaking, I felt a little regretful. In fact, Jordan probably just took me home with the idea of novelty at the time. I didn't need to explain this to him. I know. Jordan looked back at me. His eyes were surprisingly gentle. I'll pick you up after get off work tonight. After sending me back to the private restaurant, Jordan drove to the hospital. I started to sort through Nathan's things. This is a small private restaurant I opened. A room was specially reserved for him. He sometimes entertained particularly close friends here. Occasionally we stay overnight. But we didn't live together. He hugged me and kissed me. Once when we were drunk we almost had sex. But finally, I heard him calling Christine's name in a daze. At that moment I suddenly woke up. The body doesn't lie. Physiological reactions can never be faked. Perhaps it was at that moment that I finally woke up from this chaotic love. Nathan doesn't love me, not even a little bit. I put his things in order. Then he called his assistant. Assistant Ward, could you please take some time to come over and take Mr. Morris's things away? Miss Kimberly, please wait a moment. Good. A few minutes later, Ward's assistant called. Miss Kimberly, Mr. Morris said the things are still there. Mr. Morris means that we are still friends and will continue to take care of your business. No. I smiled and said, you'd better come and take it away so as to avoid any more trouble. Miss Kimberly, I'm waiting for you in the store right now. If you don't come, I'll send it to you. After saying that, I hung up the phone. 11. Assistant Ward was a little stunned. Mr. Morris, look. Nathan looked a little surprised. This is the first time such a situation has occurred in 3 years. First, he posted a very inexplicable and ridiculous message on his moments. Then I had to clean up his things. It looks like it's serious. But he knew Kimberly best. She loved him wholeheartedly and there was no way she would like any other man. All of this is just jealous girls' little tricks. It's just that Kimberly was too silly in the past and didn't know how to play these games. And now, most likely someone gave her some advice. Nathan just thought it was ridiculous, but Kimberly might not know. For a silly girl like her, such a trick is full of loopholes. But he didn't like her making such a fuss. The only thing he liked about her was that she was well-behaved and docile. Nathan said coldly, go ahead and get all the things back. Are you really taking it back, Mr. Morris? Assistant Ward was a little surprised. He nodded. Of course, tell her again that I won't go to her store again. 12. When Assistant Ward came to take the luggage away, he relayed Nathan's words to me. I am not surprised that Christine is going to settle down and not leave this time when she returns to China. Naturally, good things are coming to them. Even though I have no place in Nathan's heart, I still have the title of ex-girlfriend. It is best to draw a clear line. Assistant Ward, please also tell Mr. Morris that I am very grateful for his care for my business over the years. Miss Kimberly, actually, Mr. Morris didn't mean that. Assistant Ward, I'm going to the market. I looked at him with a smile and ordered him to leave. Assistant Ward could only get into the car with the driver, dragging 2 suitcases. After getting in the car, Assistant Ward called Nathan. Mr. Morris, which house is your item being delivered to? What did she say? Miss Kimberly said she was very grateful to you for taking care of her business before. Then what? Assistant Ward was stunned for a moment. No more. Nathan didn't respond and after a few seconds, the call was suddenly disconnected. Teen. On the 3rd day, the restaurant received an order from someone who booked 2 rooms for a party. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Jordan came to the store to find me after get off work. He was wearing a gray windbreaker, still tall and slender with handsome features. The only difference from that night was that the coldness between his brows had faded a lot. The look in his eyes when he looked at me seemed gentle. I'm going to be a bit busy tonight. I'm afraid I won't be able to take care of you. It's okay. I'll wait for you in the room. What do you want to eat? I can have a working lunch with you. That won't work. This is your first time in the store. I thought about it and asked the kitchen to prepare some light porridge dishes. There is a special lounge over here. I'll take you there first, and the food will be delivered later. Jordan didn't follow me. He leaned against the bar, just looking at me calmly. I was a little confused. What's wrong? Jordan chuckled. I won't go into other people's rooms. I was stunned and then I understood what he meant. Don't let your imagination run wild. The previous room has been converted into a private room. This lounge is for me to entertain my friends. Jordan's smile deepened. Okay. As soon as he finished speaking, a cold male voice came from behind him. Excuse me. I subconsciously pulled Jordan aside. Then I saw Nathan and Christine. Nathan's eyes swept across me coldly, and his gaze fell on my hand holding Jordan's sleeve, and suddenly became a little colder. Christine raised her eyebrows at me in protest. "Kimberly, long time no see." I nodded and said nothing. Nathan withdrew his gaze, took Christine in his arms and walked inside without even looking at me, until they are far away. "Kimberly." Jordan held my hand and said, "Please take me there. I don't know the way." I nodded and let him hold my hand. I escorted him all the way to the box and prepared to leave. I thought about it and said to him, "Rest here for a while. If I'm free later, I'll have dinner with you." Jordan grabbed my wrist and brought me directly into his arms. "There are chefs and waiters in the kitchen, so you don't have to do it yourself." "Jordan." But he bent down and kissed me. Just like that strong kiss that night, it was a little hard for me to bear. "That won't work here. We don't have that." I was anxious and scared and wanted to push him away. Jordan picked me up and put me on the table. I don't know if it was my illusion, but I felt like he was a different person, very crazy. "Kimberly, I'm going to be right here." He pulled out the hem of his shirt neatly, inserted his tall body between my legs, and lowered his head to kiss me deeply again. "You asked me to accompany you that night, and I did. Tonight I want you to accompany me too. But without a condom, you'll get pregnant. Then give birth to it." "Jordan, are you crazy?" He slowly unbuckled his belt, grabbed my wrist and forced me to face him. "Just treat me as crazy." The sky outside the window darkened. The sound of the wind whistling is right next to my ears. I couldn't help but make a sound, and I choked and bit my fingertips. Jordan took my hand away and held it tightly in his palm. His lips and teeth rubbed against my neck. "Kimberly, don't bear it. Someone will hear it. Then listen to it." As he said this, the force instantly increased. I heard my voice break. Through the window, I could see bright lights not far away. There were a lot of people in there drinking and chatting. And Nathan is among them. How ridiculous, yet indescribably exciting and enjoyable. I raised my hands and hugged Jordan tightly. "Jordan, kiss me." He did as he was told and bent down to kiss me. When I came out of the room, the back of my neck was still burning. He was hurrying towards the kitchen. Nathan's voice suddenly sounded behind me. "The one just now, is that the one in your circle of friends?" I turned around in surprise and saw him standing in the cold wind with a cigarette in his hand, his face stern. Just as she was about to shake her head subconsciously, he sneered and said, "Kimberly, don't waste your time." The fingers holding the cigarette fell on the side of my face, but I turned my face away. Nathan's voice was low and pleasant, yet it stung people's hearts. "You're using a man to deliberately piss me off? Kimberly, you're really not cute at all when you're playing tricks on me." "Nathan." I thought it was funny, but I sighed and shook my head. "I'm really not that boring." He may never know, as he still thinks as conceitedly as before. I will always be his backup and always humbly like him. In fact, I have already had the most intimate relationship with other men. A close relationship with him that he had never had before. But why not? Who really can't live without whom? Nathan put out his cigarette and looked down at me, obviously not believing me. Believe it or not, I didn't say anything more to him. I just walked past him and left without looking back. 14. Since that day, Nathan has never come to my shop again. But Jordan and I still have that relationship. They are getting closer day by day. Yet it seems as if there is no essential step forward. Half a month later, when Jeremy and Sean arrived at the clubroom, Nathan was drinking. He and Christine had just had another argument and parted on bad terms. At that time, Christine was arguing with him hysterically and refused to give up. But he inexplicably thought of Kimberly. She would never be like this. I never get angry and I never have a temper. Even though he had left her behind time and time again and chosen Christine. But she never seemed to cry. And when he turned back to look for her again, she would only ask him one question. "Nathan, have you thought about it carefully?" Every time she asked this, he would rub her face. He casually said, "I've made up my mind. From now on, I want only Kimberly." She would become shy and her pink face would turn red and hot. If he bent down and kissed her again, she would be so embarrassed that she wouldn't dare to look at him. Nathan suddenly felt very irritated. He put down his glass, frowned and took out his cell phone. Half a month has passed since we met in the store that day. No news from Kimberly. No phone calls, no WeChat. It was as if she had really disappeared from his world. Jeremy sat down on the sofa opposite him. Drinking alone? Nathan said nothing. Jeremy poured himself a glass of wine and leaned back on the couch. Shun Liangzhou just heard the news a few days ago that Chun-Chi was pregnant, and he was so happy that he almost went crazy. Jeremy himself couldn't explain how he felt. She was living a happy life and he hoped that she would be happy. But she was unwilling to accept that this happiness was not given to her by him. Nathan, you really don't have any feelings for Kimberly? She's ugly and stupid. How could I possibly have feelings for her? You don't have any feelings for her. But in the past 3 years, besides Christine, she's the only girlfriend you've had. Nathan poured another glass of wine. So what? I just went to Christine to piss her off. Nathan, don't be like me and Sean. Jeremy suddenly said in a serious tone. In fact, some things have always been hidden from the people involved. Nathan, maybe you don't realize it yourself, but Kimberly is not insignificant in your heart. Impossible. Nathan frowned and said, she's not my type at all. Sean smiled and clinked glasses with Jeremy. You said you couldn't wake him up, but you'll see. He won't cry until he sees the coffin. Nathan sneered. I'm different from you guys. I really don't like Kimberly. I really don't have any feelings for her, otherwise, I wouldn't have not touched her in the past 3 years. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the room was suddenly pushed open from the outside. Nathan, guess who I saw just now? Nathan's fingers holding the wine glass clenched unconsciously. Who did you see? Why are you making such a fuss? Oh, I saw Kimberly. 15. Nathan slowly loosened his clenched fingers and put down his glass. He leaned back on the sofa carelessly, his posture lazy and leisurely. What's wrong with seeing her? Maybe even he doesn't know it. The expression on his face at this moment was completely different from what it was just now. Even the tone of voice changed from its previous gloomy tone. Jeremy and Sean looked at each other and both shook their heads helplessly. I just asked her if she came to see you, but she still denied it. Nathan laughed softly when he heard that. Ignore her. It's normal for a girl to be thin-skinned. How about I call her over? Nathan waved his hand. Don't shout. If she really wanted to find him, she could come here by herself. There was no way he would let anyone call her over. But he was in a good mood at the moment. If Kimberly came to him and bowed her head, he would be willing to show her a good face. I thought she had really made it big now. Who knew it wouldn't even last half a month? Nathan became interested and asked everyone to play cards over there. After just a few rounds of playing cards, there was still no movement outside the door. He was a little absent-minded, looking towards the door several times, and made several mistakes in playing cards. One of his friends saw through his thoughts and said with a smile, You guys go ahead and play. I'm going to go out and have a cigarette and get some fresh air. After a while, the man turned back. But there was something strange on his face. I just went out and saw Kimberly again. She was sitting downstairs by herself and said she was waiting for someone. Nathan threw away the cards, lit a cigarette, and looked at the time on his wrist. It's already 10 o'clock in the evening. Who can she wait for? I don't know. I asked her to come up and sit first, but she refused to do so and just said she was waiting for someone. Spoil her and give her face. Nathan now felt that the cigarette was no longer enjoyable to smoke. He picked up the cigarette and put it out in the ashtray. I'm going out for some fresh air. 16. I took out my cell phone to check the time. It was already 10 o'clock. I think it will be late at night when Jordan's surgery is about to be completed. He was originally going to take me and my friends out for a small gathering tonight. Who knew that he was called away by the hospital halfway? It was originally scheduled to end at about 8:30, but until now there is still no news. I stood up somewhat reluctantly, even though I knew that as a doctor it was my duty to save lives and heal the wounded. But there is still a little disappointment. Even though I have been stood up and abandoned over the years, I don't know how many times I have experienced this. But it seems to be uncomfortable and still not immune. Kimberly. Just as I turned around to leave, a familiar voice suddenly came from behind me. My back stiffened for a moment, but soon, everything returned to normal. What are you doing here? Nathan walked up to me slowly and glanced at me with a raised eyebrow. I was having a party with a friend, but he had something urgent to do and couldn't come. I looked at him calmly and spoke slowly. Nathan sneered as if he had heard a joke. Kimberly, do you know that you look stupid when you lie? I was a little stunned, but then I thought of something. Yes, this is where Nathan usually comes. He obviously misunderstood and thought I was looking for him, but he was just too embarrassed to admit it. But I was too lazy to explain anything further because he wouldn't believe me even if I told him. So I just smiled at him and said, I'm leaving now. Kimberly. But Nathan called me again. Some things can't be repeated 3 times or 4 times. You really misunderstood. I was indeed waiting for my friend. He had an operation at the temporary hospital, so I didn't come. The one you posted on your moments? Nathan smiled even colder. Kimberly, I never knew you had any doctor friends. I met him last time when I was sick. I looked at Nathan again. That was the time I called you in the middle of the night and said I couldn't stand the stomachache, but you hung up on me. Nathan's expression finally changed little by little. Are you really sick? There seemed to be a little panic in his eyes. I thought you were jealous of Christine and deliberately lied to me. It's okay, it's all over, and I'm almost well now. I smiled and said, it's getting late. I'll go back first. For some reason, Nathan didn't call me again. But this is okay. The best thing is to not get entangled with each other and go our separate ways. 17. It was 11 o'clock when Jordan finished the operation. At that time, I had just returned to the store. Kimberly, I'm driving over to see you now. Jordan, you're so tired after the surgery, you should rest early. I was the one who broke the promise first, so I have to apologize in person. Jordan. I called his name softly. In fact, I have always been a very self-aware person. For more than half a month, we have maintained such an intimate relationship between man and woman. But he never gave me a promise. I know very well that Jordan is just trying to be novel for a while. He won't like me. Just like these 3 years Nathan and I have been on and off, but I actually always knew. In his eyes, I am not even a girlfriend. People in their circle are either rich or noble, and each of them is a rare talent. And I am just an ordinary person among the countless people. If there are any advantages, it's probably that he has a calm temperament and can cook delicious food, able to run your own small shop well, and have financial freedom within a certain range. Just like Nathan will always love a glamorous girl like Christine. The girl Jordan likes wouldn't be like me. When he was in college, he was the legendary senior. Together with the stunningly beautiful school beauty from the English department, they have always been regarded as the most compatible couple. But later, it was said that the senior wanted to stay abroad, but Jordan insisted on returning to China to become a doctor, so the two parted ways. Since then, Jordan has never been in a relationship and has remained single until now. I met that senior twice when I was in college. She is really more beautiful than many of the most famous beauties in the entertainment industry. Only a girl like that could make Jordan deeply infatuated and unforgettable. Kimberly, what's wrong with you? Jordan's voice sounded again, perhaps because he was too tired. His voice was a little hoarse. But when he called my name, he was especially gentle. I felt a stinging pain in my eye sockets. I almost shed tears. It was nothing actually, even though I was drunk that night. But I was always sober. I know it was just a fleeting romance. 18. Jordan, let's not meet again. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. When he spoke again, his tone was still as calm as usual. Kimberly, if there is anything, let's talk about it in person. No need, we don't need to meet in person. We can just talk on the phone. I'm on my way now and we'll be there in about 30 minutes. Jordan, wait in the store. Don't go anywhere. It's too late and unsafe. He then hung up the call. But my heart is full of panic grass. I don't know what we can talk about when we meet. I couldn't guess what he would say. These 30 minutes seemed endless. But it passed quickly in a flash. Jordan called again. Kimberly, I'm outside your store. I originally thought that I should not go out and not meet them. It's one thing for me to know some things myself and another thing to hear him say them. Sometimes I really want to be an ostrich. But the winter in Beijing is so cold that you can even hear the whistling cold wind outside through the receiver. I went to see him after all. 19. I'm sorry for missing your date tonight. I'm not angry. You're a doctor. This is your duty. I understand. Why did you say we won't meet again? What happened that night was originally an accident. Jordan, I won't pester you because of this. I also know that you don't like me. So, in your eyes, I am someone who takes women home to spend the night casually? No, I didn't mean that. I defended myself hastily. I thought you posted that circle of friends the next day to officially announce that you were in a relationship. He paused when he said this. It turns out that I was overthinking. Jordan. I opened my eyes wide in surprise. So, you don't like me, right, Kimberly? Nathan's looking for you again, isn't he? In your heart, you still can't forget him. And that circle of friends post was just to piss him off. Jordan's tone was calm throughout. I couldn't even hear any joy, anger, or emotional ups and downs. But strangely, an idea popped into my mind. He seemed to be jealous. Being jealous of Nathan. But I really never thought about it that way. Moreover, on the night of his birthday, I had completely let it go. I completely stopped liking him. 20. Jordan took off his glasses and pinched his brows. He was very tired, having performed surgery for several hours, and then drove to see me. There are red bloodshot eyes. He didn't even have time to change his white coat. In the cold winter wind, he stood in front of me in thin clothes and said these words. Even if I am slow-witted, I can sense that he is not completely without affection for me. But why does he have feelings for me? I'm just an ordinary, plain girl. Kimberly. Jordan looked at me, perhaps because his eyes were slightly red at this moment. The whole person looked like he was indescribably aggrieved. You can't do this to me. You can't just abandon me after having sex with me. You can't be irresponsible. I don't. You just said that we shouldn't meet again. Jordan, I'm just worried that it will cause you trouble. I don't want you to think that I will cling to you because of that night. So you don't like Nathan now? You didn't post that circle of friends just to piss him off, did you? I wanted to laugh, but my eyes turned red for no apparent reason. The night was dark, and he stood in the wind's outlet, blocking the howling cold wind for me. I looked up and saw the tiny image of me reflected in his pupils. Only me. Why was it him that night? Maybe it was that late night a long time ago when I had such a stomachache that I thought I was going to die. It was the warm hand he extended to me. So when I saw him at that time, I had an invisible intuition in my heart that he would definitely save me again. He walked towards me and held out his hand to me for the second time. Maybe I shouldn't miss it again. Even if my feelings are only tiny, it is better than never liking you. Jordan, please stop being jealous, okay? I already disliked him. Before I could finish my words, Jordan held my face and kissed me deeply. 21. Nathan didn't know why he came to find Kimberly. Perhaps it was because of the huge quarrel with Christine that made him completely exhausted and he wanted to end it. Perhaps it was the doctor that Kimberly mentioned that made him feel vaguely uneasy. So, for some unknown reason, he drove to Kimberly's shop in the middle of the night. No one came to see her, so it turned out that she was lying to him. There was no party with friends at all, she just went to see him. She wanted to get back together with him. And this time he hoped to get back together with her more than countless times before. But just when he wanted to find Kimberly, a car stopped outside Kimberly's store. When Jordan got out of the car, Nathan felt his heartbeat suddenly stop. In his heart, he actually always thought that the doctor might be just an ordinary man. How outstanding can the people who like an ordinary girl like Kimberly be? But he never thought that it would be the man he met in Kimberly's store that day. In fact, when he saw him that day, he had some feelings for him. I just thought conceitedly that how could a man like this like Kimberly? But why can't I like her? Isn't there also a man who drives to see her late at night? Over the long years, Kimberly has actually become a part of him. That's why he felt so uncomfortable and reluctant when she decided not to want him anymore. But as Jeremy said, those who are involved are often confused. He always thought that he wouldn't like Kimberly. But Kimberly will always love him and wait for him. No matter when, as long as he looked back, Kimberly would always be standing there. Time and again this idea of his was proven. So he acted unscrupulously and fearlessly. Until now. He watched Kimberly and Jordan kiss passionately. He watched Jordan follow Kimberly home. He looked at the light inside for a long time, and finally turned it off. And in the darkness, Nathan also heard the sound of something breaking in his heart. 22. Nathan's phone was ringing and vibrating. It was endless, as if the man would not give up unless he picked up the phone. Nathan looked at the name flashing on the screen. He smiled self-deprecatingly and answered the call anyway. Christine. Nathan, where have you been? They said you saw Kimberly tonight. You went to see her, didn't you? I knew you were lying to me, saying you didn't like her. You were just kidding me. Nathan, if you like her, why did you look for me? Why did you want to get back together with me? Now that you've reunited with me, what does it mean that you're still thinking about her? Who do you think I am? Nathan, I'm telling you, I'm not Kimberly. I'm not that easy to bully. I won't be stupid enough to wait for you and love you wholeheartedly. You're right. Nathan suddenly spoke, and Christine's crying suddenly stopped. Nathan, you are definitely not her, and you really won't wait for me foolishly, so now you are finally willing to tell the truth, right? Nathan. Christine's voice sounded a little flustered. You haven't been in love in 3 years? Nathan sneered. Every time we break up, you're always single waiting for me? What right do you have to criticize me? Every time you break up with me, don't you turn around and look for Kimberly? Why can you make a seamless transition but I can't? But I never hid anything, Christine. I made the transition seamlessly, but I told you honestly every time. But what about you? Who said that they had never dated another boyfriend in the past 3 years? Who cheated first? You are indeed not as good as Kimberly. At least Kimberly loves someone wholeheartedly. I'm no match for her. I'm fickle, indecisive, greedy, and selfish. Christine, we're just a rotten pair. Nathan, you actually like Kimberly, don't you? You've actually liked her for a long time, right? Every time you went back to get back together with her, you were always very happy and willing, right? Nathan clutched his phone, wondering in a daze, was he so obvious about it? Seemed to be true. It seemed that every time after he quarreled with Christine, he couldn't wait to find Kimberly. I didn't even want to wait one night. It seemed like every time he was secretly looking forward to having an argument and breaking up with Christine, then he could naturally go back to Kimberly. Naturally, he trapped her by his side. It seemed that only when she was by his side, his heart was not empty. However, he and Christine actually had an argument on the night of Kimberly's birthday. But their quarrel that night was not serious and did not reach the point of breaking up. So he didn't go to find Kimberly. The next day, Kimberly posted that message on WeChat Moments. He was actually very angry, but acted as if he didn't care in front of his friends. He insisted that Kimberly was only doing these tricks out of jealousy. Then, Kimberly called Ward's assistant to get his things. In fact, he was a little panicked at that time, but he was too conceited. At that time, he still refused to believe that Kimberly really didn't want him anymore. He even naively thought about teaching Kimberly a lesson and giving her a good scare. But it's just these differences in thought. There is no possibility of recovery. Nathan listened to Christine's crying. He leaned back in the car seat and pressed his temples hard. Christine, let's stop this. Nathan, what do you mean? Nathan stared at the darkness for a long time before speaking softly. Let's break up. Don't meet each other again. 23. My room was not big and the bed was not big either. It would be a bit cramped for someone as tall and long-legged as Jordan to sleep on it. But he refused to go back. I also felt sorry for him because he was too tired, so I prepared to sleep on the sofa. But Jordan still refused. Half asleep and half awake, I suddenly thought of some things from the past and couldn't help asking him, Jordan, why were you always so cold to me? Including the night we had sex. Although his attitude towards me has become much gentler, I have never dared to think that he likes me. Because you and Nathan have been on and off together. Jordan hugged me tighter. So I always remind myself to keep my distance. That time when you got sick in the middle of the night and Nathan didn't care, I thought you were going to break up with him. The result is still no. Jordan bent down and kissed me, but his tone was a little serious. Kimberly, I was actually very angry at that time. I don't understand why you don't take care of yourself at all. In fact, I had already thought about breaking up at that time. It's just ridiculous, right? My birthday is coming soon, but I don't want to celebrate it alone. My father died when I was a child, and my mother also passed away when I was in college. Opening this private restaurant can be considered as carrying on my father's legacy, because he is a really great cook and left me a lot of recipes that are never passed on to others. So after my mother passed away, I used the inheritance left by my parents to open this small shop. But people who have no one to rely on will always crave for more warmth. On days like birthdays, I want someone to be with me. I just didn't expect that this birthday would turn out like this. But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise as I met Jordan. Luckily, I met you that night. Jordan didn't say anything, he just hugged me tighter. There are not so many fortunate things and coincidences in this world. It's just that there is someone who has been silently trying to get closer to her. 24. Jordan was angry that she didn't know how to take care of herself and was always bullied. But I feel more sorry for her. That late night many years ago, she hid away and cried alone because of her mother's death anniversary. Maybe we will never know. She looks so pitiful when she cries. And the next day, she pretended to be strong and laughed and joked with her classmates. How cute and how heartbreaking. Later on Christmas Eve, she and those schoolmates gave him apples with blushing faces. He was shamefully moved. But at that time, he had already completed all the procedures for going abroad, and she was only 19 years old. He thought about waiting until she grew up a little and when he came back from abroad. So he said nothing. But the apple she gave him was the only peace apple he accepted. He treasured it for a long time until the time came when he had to throw it away. But she didn't expect that after he left, she would fall in love with another man so wholeheartedly. Because I've seen her like someone. Because he had seen her and Nathan's breakups and reunions over the past 3 years. So he has always been distant towards her. In fact, he was afraid himself, afraid that she would notice something from an unsafe distance. Thus completely alienated. Until the night of her birthday. She says it's her birthday and she doesn't want to be alone. Somehow, he brought her back to his home. But at this moment, she was already asleep in his arms. Jordan lowered his head and kissed her lightly between the eyebrows. He knew that for the rest of his life, he would never let her shed a tear again.